welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to make a story. Basically, it's going to be called Once Upon a Time, and this is going to be a Thursday, March 30th of a Thursday, 2023 video because it's going to be very good, and uh, and you will see it. It is very good that I'm doing the playing cards as the hearts, the diamonds as the earth signs and water signs in this situation. But this is what it seems to be. I know that everything will be all good. I always think about that. But this is a very significant story to tell. It is a little short story, but if you are water signs, if you're Pisces, Scorpio, Cancer, you're in this one. If you are in the diamonds, so if you represent earth signs, so Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus in that situation, go ahead with that. But the point being is that we will get started with this. The names are, just remember that it's Dan, Beth, Ben, Aria, Brandon, all those names. Um, uh, they can be real names, but they might be not. But this is a very significant story. And then we're going to, I'll read the whole thing, and then from the story, from the end, and then the numerology, and then the dice numbers, and then that'll be the end of the story. So basically, this is what it seems to be, and we were going to get started. So I hope that you guys will like this and enjoy. All right, so let's get started. All right, so basically we have this. I'll put these over here for a minute. So basically, um, in my own section here of my reading material, this is what it seems to be. And the Six of Hearts represents emotions and Scorpio, so that's what it is. The Three of Diamonds represents mistrustful, so that would be Capricorn, right? So the Six of Cups, if it was there, it would be vanish. Three of Pentacles, it would be rank. That's what it is, right? So if you're in the tarot, you're doing that. But when you're not doing it, you're kind of just think about that, right? Think about that. So that's what it is. The numbers are 114 of this right here. But so if you're the dice numbers and numerology, so I'll get that to the end of the story. But this is what it seems to be. Once upon a time, Aries had ranked number 1. And then before it happened, he had mistrustful Capricorn and fought back. And then Scorpio had emotions and vanished from the game of baseball. Now that is a short story, okay? It's not a long story, it's not, no. But the point being is that what happened was that when Aries represents a fire sign, okay? Represent that. But the point being is that Aries who's fire sign, Scorpio is water, and Capricorn is earth at the same time. Look at those. But Aries was a fire sign to Capricorn. Capricorn fought back and helped Scorpio. But when Scorpio had emotions and vanished from the game of baseball, they weren't very happy at all. Now, why is that? Well, let me explain a few things. Because when you vanish, like when you had emotions and vanished from the game of baseball, let's characterize, or let me act about this. So basically, you're playing a game of baseball and say, "I had emotions, and then all of a sudden you vanish the game, and that's it. Vanish the game of baseball and say, I had enough with that. I'm going to quit. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to train. I'm not going to hit this freaking ball, and I'm going to." Those are emotions, okay? Those are really good emotions, right? Now, in that note, So you have that. Now the point being is that if you had a friend that is Aries or Capricorn or any of those, any mistrustful Capricorn and fought back and then Scorpio had emotions, like because both of Capricorn and Aries are not going together. Okay. It's absolutely wow at the same time. It gives me my attention where when you're playing a game, you're playing eventually a game, but in that note, it's just down to that essential way and saying, I have enough. I had enough. And this is why that this is a very interesting story at the same time. Because Brandon could be a boy's name, it could be a girl's name, but Brandon is a boy's name. Aria is like a girl's name. Ben is like another boy's name. Beth is a girl's name, and Dan is a boy's name at the same time. So you have all these things are going on, but it doesn't make any sense where you have this. You have the ability to make a small story, like a short story, right? And you get into these overwhelming situations, right? Now, first things first, you can imagine that you're playing a baseball game. Just imagine if it was a beautiful sunny day and you're having a very long time and you're having great fun with your family or friends or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you like say, okay, forget this, I gotta go. Which means, you had enough with it, right? You just say, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm not gonna you know, do anything that I wanted to do, right? And that's what it seems to be. But when the Three of Pentacles is rank, and that's like the Three of Diamonds, that represents, Capricorn right there. Capricorn is like with Beth. Beth is a lady's name, let's say that. And let's say it's mistrustful. Well, trust is like you're agreeing with somebody, and mistrustful, you don't agree with somebody. You're gonna miss their trust. Well, that's what it seems to be. Now the point being is that if you look at this significant reading, if you look at Aria and Beth at the same time, those are two girls in this situation. Dan, Ben, and Brandon are boys. Okay, they're the guys. And it does make sense, but it doesn't make any sense because when I look at the reading that it says before it happened, he had mistrustful Capricorn fought back, and then Scorpio had emotions. Before that started, fought back, which means that Capricorn fought back because he was hitting the baseball and he was probably on probably on third base. And then all of a sudden, when he actually fought back, he actually went back to the base that he was. Like it was on his way to home base. All of a sudden, he goes back into third base. He fought back, and then Scorpio had emotions, which means he was crying, and he wasn't very good because he was all angry or upset or misjudged, whatever it is, whatever. And then vanished from the game of baseball, which means Scorpio had enough and he left. Like he was like, this is bull crap. I'm gonna freaking leave. And he tossed the towel. He'd like say, forget this. Here, I'm gonna go. You know, it is a funny story, but it doesn't make it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense, right? It's like common sense, right? You use common sense. You don't use nonsense and saying, wow, I am being this way and I don't want to say this, you know. And that's why it's like this is not like BS situation. This is not a bull service or I have no idea. But you know, it just seems to be how ridiculous it is, right? Because when Scorpio had enough, he left, right? It would be that way, like it could be, Capricorn had vanished and then from left the game, or Aries or whatever. But when you do Once Upon a Time, Aries had ranked first, and then before it happened, he had Mistrustful Capricorn and fought back, and then Scorpio had emotions, vanished from the game of baseball. Like, it's like giving someone a whack against like a fence post, or getting whacked by a baseball bat or something. It's like, you should never do that, you should never do, so it's it's, and then when people say you should never do that, it's like, no cookies for you, mister. Oh, but the point being is that this is why that this is like a funny, interesting uh situation, right? Because I'm using like the playing cards, I'm using the dice, I'm using, well, I use my phone a couple times, but it's not reasonable. Now get this about the numbers that are over here, my dice numbers. Look at this at the bottom. It says, okay, so numerology, if you want to know numerology, 11, 14, 1, and 41. So if your age number is 41, if you're a baby, you're 1 years old. If you're 14 years old, you're like a teenager. 11 years old is like a kid, whatever it is, right? And then but the names and stuff like that. And then the dice numbers. So like 1 represents divine agreement, 1 4 represents foundation, and 4 1 is new ideas. Well, if I made the story a little bit more different, new ideas, foundation, divine agreement, that's what it is, right? But I didn't put that in there because I want to know what happened. Because if Scorpio had emotions and vanished from the game of baseball, he could have new ideas, or a foundation. Foundation is like probably making money, or a funding money, whatever it is. And then you have divine agreement. If you put divine agreement, then 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 Scorpio will not have any emotions through that, right? Now this is like a very interesting story because I already read you the storyline. I know it makes total sense, but it doesn't really make any sense because it's like what I said this before. It's like enough is enough. Playing the game of baseball, you can do whatever you decided to do. But when you have a fight, or you're not getting along, or you're gonna say who's on first, who's on second, who's on third, it reminds me about that comedy on YouTube, and it's Abbott and Costello, and they're both saying like, who's on first? No, who's on second? No, who's on third? And then they go back, like Lou was talking to Costello, and Costello is saying, no, no, Lou, who's on first? I don't know. That's it reminds me about that. But back to my own skit here, my own sketch here. It kind of gives me an open wise situation. You know, there are times where we have to believe that we can do this. Having emotions occasionally, fine. Everyone goes through that, from happy, sad, angry, whatever it is, right? But when you have the Three of Diamonds represent mistrustful, well, then you're having trust with somebody, and all of a sudden you're mistrustful, which means like, am I doing something wrong? Did I mistrustful that person? It's like, okay, fine. But when mistrustful somebody, you actually lied about that. Maybe you lied that Capricorn didn't even go through. Maybe Capricorn was not being trustful. Whatever it is, whatever the storyline is seizing the moment. Seize the moment, right? But when I start the story and I said once upon a time Aries had ranked first, ranked number one, and then before it happened he had mistrustful Capricorn and fought back, and then Scorpio had emotions vanished from the game of baseball because it does make sense, but it doesn't make sense because Aries, who is a fire sign, and if you put Aries into, I don't know, Capricorn, and Capricorn into Scorpio and all those, they won't commit with each other. Like, which means they won't get along. They won't. Committing, yeah, they will. They would commit if they're husband and wife and kids, whatever it is. But when you don't get along, then it's like, what has happened to this story? What's going on? What you know? And then you have to have all these five W's, which means who, what, where, when, why, and sometimes how. You know, that's what it seems to be. Because nonetheless, it's like you have to remember that you have to seize the right moment. You have to believe that you can do this. There's always a will and there's always a way, right? Like, because when I look at the Six of Hearts, the Three of Diamonds, it does represent, water signs or earth signs. But when I put the dice together, it will make a lot more, right? Like the Three of Pentacles. How would I got that? Maybe the Three of Diamonds, right? If I got the Six of Hearts, that represents emotions, that represents Scorpio, but that represents Six of Cups, represents Vanish, right? But it represents Scorpio at the same time. So it's like you have those, right? Because emotions vanish, you do that, right? Now, the Three of Pentacles represents rank. It could be rank could represent Aries, right? Aries is one of those where fire signs, right? Because when you look at those in ways, you know, um, there's always times and beginnings, right? There's always a time frame, like which means that you from morning, afternoon, and evening. That's a time frame, right? And then when you look at this down the page or down the road or whatever it is, then you look at Capricorn or you look at Scorpio. There are different emotions. They're not emotions, but different zodiac signs at the same time. You know, and then when I go back to emotions, like Aries would have being angry, or Capricorn would be feeling angry, or Scorpio would be feeling whatever it is, right? Now think about that, right? Now before I let you all go, before I decide to so you guys can listen to what I'm saying in this video about this beautiful story that makes sense and kind of makes you laugh or whatever. It's a good storyline here. Um, you have to remember that you have to take things for granted as what they are. There are times like these where we have to believe about what's happening through the story from the start, the middle, and end. You know, that's what it seems to be because nonetheless, it's like you can do this as much as you can. There's always a good way, there's always a bad way, there's always this, there's always that. And that's what it seems to be, because when I look at the two situations, there's more than two, but what I'm saying is that when you look at the storyline and you think, okay, this makes sense, it does in a way, but you have to, like, I'm not going to say back off, no, but you have to remember that there is always a timing where everything is all good and all of a sudden, boom, like everything will switch, you know. Everything can do that, you know, because what I'm thinking, if I made the story differently, then it would be, right? But in a way, I did not, right? So you have to remember that you have to understand about who, what, where, when, why, sometimes how, in these situations in the story, because it does make sense, right? It does. So before I let you all go, there's only one thing they must learn is pay attention. Pay attention about this story. Does it make sense to you or does not? So remember about that and just commented this when you get a chance to. Please subscribe to my channel. You know what it is. You know who I am. Joy Alex, you know. So just remember about that and I hope that you enjoy this and I'll see you next time. Very much. Bye for now. Bye.